Our final guest for this half hour of Palmetto People is Representative Dan Cooper, and he is chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. And you are a gentleman with a very unenviable task this year. I guess that would be safe to say, wouldn't it?
That's safe to say. Nobody seems to want my job today.
Tell me a little bit about how difficult this is going to be this year, how difficult it's already been even leading up to the session.
Well, we've already made substantial cuts to different agencies because the revenue is not coming in like it has in the past, and that's all due to the economy. And we may not have seen the end of cuts before the end of the fiscal year.
So, I mean, even heading up to the end of the fiscal year at the 1st of July, I mean, we might see more cuts in this present year's budget.
Yes, hopefully there won't be very much of one, but it's entirely possible.
So how painful is this right now for the state? How painful is it for all of the departments in the state?
We've gone from a little over $7 billion in the original Appropriations Act to a little above $6 billion. So that's where we are. We're at roughly $900 million less than we started out with.
So, almost
that's a lot of money.
Almost $1 billion that you have to take out of the budget. So when that happens, there's going to be a lot of pain, and a lot of people are going to suffer because of that in terms of services and in terms of state employees and their jobs. And we're seeing furloughs, we're seeing some people being let go and so forth already.
Yeah, that's correct. That's typically most of the expense are in personnel. So
it's about the economy and where things are nationally, but why has this hit South Carolina so hard?
Well, we've done several things, and some of them are very positive for the consumers out there. The last 2 years we removed the sales tax on groceries, unprepared food. So that's around $300 million in revenue that we used to get even in an economic downturn, which we're not getting these days because we took that off. And the perfect storm we've had, the $4 gasoline, the real estate market, and the financial markets all falling apart at the same time, meant most people were buying their groceries and they were buying gasoline, and that's all they could afford. So there's no money being spent on anything else. So we don't collect sales tax. And unemployment's up because as a direct result of most of that. And the other thing the state gets is income taxes, and we're not collecting that at the rate we would normally do.
So I mean, it's all just coming together.
Virtually zero capital gains.
And we're hearing that now a lot of people are saying we need to go in and readjust the tax system and look at some of these exemptions, look at some of the things and put everything back on the table. Is that where we are at this point?
Just in sales tax have roughly 300 sales tax exemptions. And they run a gamut of things, from exemption on newsprint to the groceries. So we'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. There's no avoidance.
We've done that in the past, and all of those exemptions got there because some constituency lobbied the legislature at some point in the past to make a case for why they should be exempt from sales tax for that particular thing. So I'm sure most of those will come back out.
Where are you right now
heading
into this session or getting ready to start this session in terms of figuring out the budget that you want to present that is going to come out of the House Ways and Means Committee? I mean, how far along in the process are you?
We haven't really started. We've just reorganized the House. The legislature will come back in January on the 13th, and we will start having budget subcommittee hearings then. Staff and I and several of the subcommittee chairmen who've been reappointed will be looking at their agencies and how they can manage with probably more cuts for the 2009-2010 budget year, which is what we'll be working on.
We're seeing a lot of misery in 2008, 2009. Any indication that that's not going to be the case as we go forward into 2009, 2010?
Well, we don't know. Obviously, the forecast from last year was not on target because things happened that we had not foreseen. So a lot of people are assuming that the 09-10 budget year will not be any better and may be worse.
When will you get together? What's the timetable in terms of getting that budget out of committee and getting it?
We have to have it it has to completely go through the House by March 30th by statute. So we have about 6-7 weeks to get it pushed out of the House.
How difficult is that going to be to
get it put together and then get it to the House?
And you know, to be able to do that in 6 or 7 weeks seems like a monumental task.
Well, we lay the groundwork. We've done over the years. Most of the members of the Ways and Means Committee have been in the House for a substantial number of years. Usually, you have to be there around 6 years to actually get appointed to the committee. That's not a hard and fast rule, but that's just sort of a rule of thumb the Speaker operates with. So they're sort of familiar with the agencies. They've been through the process at least 6 times, and there's lots of information out there. Every one of the agencies has been required for the past 7 or 8 years to put out an accountability report, which they tell us what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are, what their mission is, and what they do well and what they don't do well. So there's lots of opportunity, lots of information to look at that, and members of the committee do that on a regular basis. So they come in ready to go when we come into session on the 13th.
And it's just a few more days away. Do you have any ideas on how structurally the state might change things to make sure that, when times get better, that the spending doesn't ramp up again and we find ourselves in the same situation the next downturn?
Well, we currently set aside about 5% in the General Reserve Fund and the Capital Reserve Fund each year. So we have somewhat of a cushion already that's not spent, and we wind up using all of the Capital Reserve Fund this past year when we closed the books in August, and went somewhat in the General Reserve Fund for roughly $90 million. So we have to do those. Those are constitutionally mandated that we put that money back in the General Reserve Fund, or at least a portion of it. So there are lots of discussions on the table about whether to do a cap on spending, with some measures, yes, of CPI plus inflation, Consumer Price Index plus inflation, or other things. I personally believe we just need to probably raise the percentage that we put into the General Reserve Fund or Capital Reserve
Simplify
Fund.
it.
And yeah, that's what we've already have a mechanism in place. CPI and inflation can work against you sometimes when you have a huge drop like we've had, and then you try to get agencies back up to speed when the economy comes back up. They model it after Colorado, and Colorado had some issues with theirs. They may have worked it out by now, and maybe there's a better product out there for the CPI plus inflation.
Okay. Well, Representative Dan Cooper, Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, thanks for stopping by and talking with us. As we say, an unenviable task for you, and I think the best thing that we can do is just say good luck.
Thank you very much. Okay. I appreciate it.
Mary Ann and I will be back to wrap up this edition of Palmetto People right after this.